Medellín, Colombia. The year is 1949, a city defined by its sharp contrast, beauty in its mountains, yet struggle in its streets. It was here, on December 1st, that Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born, the son of a farmer and a schoolteacher. His beginnings were humble, but even as a boy, Escobar's ambition burned brighter than his circumstances. By his teenage years, he was already chasing money through whatever means he could find. He sold fake diplomas, smuggled stereo equipment, and even stole gravestones to resell them to smugglers. These were small hustles, but to Escobar they were stepping stones. He was restless, and he was determined to rise above the life of poverty that surrounded him. In the early 1970s, Escobar's focus shifted to something far more lucrative: cocaine. At first, it was modest shipments into the United States, but Pablo Escobar saw what many others didn't. Cocaine wasn't just a drug, it was a global product, one with a market that was exploding in demand, and he would be the one to supply it. By 1976, Escobar co-founded what would become the most powerful drug cartel in history, the Medellín Cartel. Within just a few years, the cartel grew into a global empire. Planes carried cocaine hidden in tires and spare parts. Submarines, boats, and even tunnels became part of the network. From jungle laboratories deep in Colombia to the streets of Miami, Escobar's empire stretched far and wide. The money began to pour in at unimaginable levels. By the early 1980s, Escobar was earning as much as $70 million a day. His cartel controlled nearly 80% of the world's cocaine market. He became so rich that Forbes magazine listed him among the 10 wealthiest men on the planet in 1989. Yet Escobar was more than just a drug trafficker. He was a master manipulator of image and perception. He poured millions into building homes for the poor, soccer fields for children, and entire neighborhoods for those who had nothing. In the eyes of many in Medellín, he was not a criminal. He was a savior, a Robin Hood who gave to the poor while stealing from the rich world abroad. But this was only one side of Pablo Escobar. Behind the gifts and generosity stood a man building an empire of fear. His wealth and power were built on corruption, violence, and death. Escobar had tasted success, and his ambition knew no limits. This was the beginning of Pablo Escobar's rise. From a boy of humble origins to a billionaire kingpin, worshipped by some, feared by all. But as his empire grew, so too did the bloodshed. The man hailed as Medellín's Robin Hood was about to reveal his darker side. And with that, Pablo Escobar's reign of terror was about to begin.
With wealth came influence, and with influence came power. But Pablo Escobar's power did not come from charm alone. It was built on fear, intimidation, and death. By the 1980s, Escobar's Medellín Cartel had grown into a criminal empire that spanned continents. He ruled with a chilling philosophy captured in 3 words: plata o plomo, silver or lead. Accept his bribe, or face his bullets. Politicians, judges, police officers, all of them were forced to make the choice. Many took the money. Those who didn't often paid with their lives. Escobar's reach extended far beyond the underworld. In 1982, he was elected to Colombia's Congress, using his fortune to buy political influence. But his presence in politics quickly drew suspicion and enemies. Journalists who spoke against him were silenced. Officials who stood in his way disappeared. And the country realized that a man who was once celebrated as a benefactor had now become a threat to its very stability. Escobar's reign was marked by violence on a scale Colombia had never seen. He ordered the assassinations of presidential candidates who opposed him. He unleashed car bombs in city streets. Perhaps most shocking was the bombing of Avianca Flight 203 in 1989, an attack meant to kill a rival politician, but instead it claimed the lives of over 100 innocent people. In the same year, his cartel bombed the headquarters of the Colombian security agency, killing more than 50 people in a single blast. These were not isolated incidents. They were deliberate acts of terror, designed to spread fear, to send a message: no one was untouchable. By this time, Escobar's name was known across the world. The United States, drowning in a wave of cocaine, declared him the most dangerous man alive. The Colombian government, under pressure from Washington, vowed to bring him down. But Escobar was not easy to corner. With billions of dollars at his disposal, he built private armies of gunmen. He owned entire neighborhoods of Medellín, where the poor, loyal to him for his generosity, would act as his eyes and ears. He was a criminal, but in many ways he was also a warlord. His cartel was more powerful than many governments, his money flowing endlessly, his ruthlessness unmatched. Every assassination, every bombing, every bribe pushed Colombia deeper into chaos. By the late 1980s, Pablo Escobar was no longer just a drug trafficker. He had become a symbol of terror, a man who could defy nations, who could order hundreds of deaths with a single command. The dream of power that had begun in the streets of Medellín had transformed into a nightmare that held an entire country hostage. But even for a man like Escobar, there were limits. The higher he rose, the more enemies he created. And as his violence grew, so too did the determination of those who wanted to bring him down. The reign of Pablo Escobar could not last forever. By the early 1990s, the empire Pablo Escobar had built with blood and cocaine was beginning to crack. His enemies were multiplying, and his power, though immense, was no longer unshakable. The United States and Colombia had forged a relentless alliance against him. Extradition to the US became Escobar's greatest fear, and he vowed that he would rather die in Colombia than ever set foot in an American prison. His war against extradition left rivers of blood across the nation. Judges, ministers, journalists, and entire families were assassinated. It was a battle Escobar fought with money, bombs, and bullets. But the walls were closing in. His allies in politics grew scarce. Rival cartels, tired of his dominance, turned against him. And the Colombian people, once seduced by his generosity, now lived in terror of the violence that consumed their country. In 1991, Escobar made a deal with the government. He would surrender in exchange for avoiding extradition to the US. But Escobar did not go to an ordinary prison. Instead, he built his own fortress, La Cathedral. This prison had a soccer field, a bar, a jacuzzi, and luxurious rooms. From within its walls, Escobar continued to run the Medellín Cartel, mocking the state and the law. But his arrogance would be his undoing. When it became clear that Escobar was still running his empire from La Cathedral, the government tried to move him to a real prison. Escobar simply walked out, vanishing into the mountains. He was free again, and the greatest manhunt in Colombian history began. For 16 months, Escobar was a fugitive. He was hunted not only by the Colombian police and US intelligence but also by a vigilante group known as Los Pepes, former enemies who wanted him dead at any cost. The king of Medellín was now cornered on all sides. On December 2, 1993, a day after celebrating his 44th birthday, Escobar's luck finally ran out. Colombian authorities tracked him down to a modest house in Medellín where he was hiding with his bodyguard. A gunfight erupted. Escobar tried to escape across the rooftops, but it was too late. He was shot and killed, his body sprawled on a red-tiled roof. The news spread instantly. To some, it was a day of triumph, the end of a reign of terror. To others, especially the poor who had worshipped him, it was the death of a hero. His funeral drew thousands, a chaotic mix of mourning and relief. Pablo Escobar was gone, but the world he created did not die with him. His death left a vacuum that would soon be filled by other cartels, other drug lords, and new wars. The cocaine trade lived on, even stronger, even bloodier. Pablo Escobar's story remains one of the most extraordinary in modern history. From the slums of Medellín to the heights of global power, from a Robin Hood to a terrorist, his life was a tale of ambition without limits. But in the end, his empire collapsed under the same violence and greed that had built it. Escobar's rise was meteoric. His reign was terrifying. His fall, inevitable. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please like, share, subscribe and hit the notification bell to get on future videos. Thanks.